Greetings, friends. Today's talk is on the 25th chapter of the Dhammapada. It's usually, well, the title means to a monk. And just within the sutta, I have changed references from to a monk to wise Dhamma practitioner, as the Buddha intended his Dhamma to be available and accessible to everyone. He never taught any advanced type of Buddhist practice or special practices for special people. It was completely egalitarian. And so I've made that change throughout the Dhamma articles that I've written. And this chapter teaches the importance of wise restraint, which is really the essence of the Buddha's Dhamma, to cease the constant eye-making rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths and practice restraint at the point of contact. And what that means is, as life is occurring, we have the concentration and the right view framed by the Eightfold Path to not get entangled with what's occurring, to practice restraint, to recognize that there's nothing personal in the world. And this relates also to, that's a general way of living in the world. But then as far as wise Dhamma practitioners, who the Buddha is really addressing this to, it's a teaching on refining your Dhamma practice. We'll apply it to our Dhamma practice too, and we won't fall into the trap of grasping after and clinging to rites and rituals and all the many adaptations, accommodations, and embellishments that have been made to so-called Buddhism in the 2,600 years since the teacher passed, since an awakened human being passed. And this chapter is reflective of that. Most of the Buddha's teachings are also include this cautionary theme, even if it's underlying a lot of the suttas, of recognizing what is authentic Dhamma, and he also provided the framework known as the Eightfold Path to recognize and abandon false or misleading or distracting dharmas. Let me read the sutta. Again, this is from the 25th chapter of the Dhammapada. And the Buddha starts out right away with the essence of the Dhamma. And that's reflected in these first few lines. Good is restraint over the eye. Good is restraint over the ear. Good is restraint over the nose. Good is restraint over the tongue. Good is restraint in the body. Good is restraint in speech. Good is restraint in thought. Restraint is always good. And that, I got to comment on that one line. Good is restraint is thought. It's probably the most difficult thing for any of us that are rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths and constantly grasping after new and novel ideas. By the way, there's really nothing new as far as the way that human beings think when it's rooted in ignorance. That if the problem is constant grasping, constant desire, constant craving, and clinging to those things that we crave for and desire, then it's so obvious that the counter to that, the wise approach to that, would be developing a way to recognize that we're doing it and incorporate wise restraint. That's what the Buddha is teaching here. The wise Dhamma practitioner, well restrained, is free of all suffering. So it's not acquisitions, it's not the next job or better friends or a better, more modern type of Dhamma practice. It's not anything external. The wise Dhamma practitioner, well restrained, is free of all suffering. So if we really want to be free of all suffering, we'll learn what wise restraint means and we'll learn how to apply it. And again, that's what the Eightfold Path is about. The Dhamma practitioner, in control of the sixth sense base, delights in developing the Dhamma. They are established in Jhana and in concentration, free of worldly entanglements, content. And by the way, content is the experiential opposite of dukkha. The Pali word is sukha. It means content, it means flourishing, as opposed to the experience, the ongoing experience and distraction of dukkha. This one is called wise indeed. The wise Dhamma practitioner, restrained in speech, moderate and unassuming, explains the Dhamma with wisdom and understanding. Their words are always skillful. What a wonderful way to live our lives, restrained in speech, moderate and unassuming, and that we have the ability to explain the Dhamma with wisdom and understanding. If we truly care about ourselves and other human beings, that's the way we'll engage in life. Not this constant, whether it's with the political climate, a constant protest, which is nothing more than an expression of inner conflict. And realizing that the difficulties in the world, and again, I'm not just talking about politics, I'm talking about just the general conditions all across the world. The conflict arises from ignorance. It's not a group of individuals or an individual. It's not a one political party or the next. It's not who has wealth and who doesn't. It's not who is in governance or who is the dictators and the true evil rulers of our world. It's all rooted in ignorance. And it may sound too simplistic to many that the solution is the cessation of ignorance, but anybody who is careful in their thinking and just a bit wise in how they're looking at things would realize that the root cause of all of this, whether it's our own internal conflict and our reaction to always be protesting, or it's someone else who we think deserves to be hated and protested against, or an ideology, or an event in the world. These are just worldly events that the Buddha realized upon his awakening, that the world is a flame with what? The fires of passion rooted in ignorance. And that's something he realized 2,600 years ago, and it's still today. This is the penultimate chapter in the Dhammapada, and it's really bringing together, coalescing everything that was in the first 24 chapters. It's remarkable. So let me continue. The wise Dhamma practitioner, established in the Dhamma, who delights in the Dhamma, well concentrated, who hears the authentic Dhamma, will not lose their way. And again, this talks to to me, the corruption of Buddhism to this egalitarian, not equalitarian, egalitarian, almost entirely egalitarian view of engaged Buddhism, because they have, and to the most part, they have lost their way, because much of this engaged Buddhism takes a subtle and sometimes not so subtle approach rooted in aversion and its more powerful cousin, hatred. And it's justified because of my moral superiority, meaning those that are engaged in that. And that's just another self-centered, self-identified with ideology view. It's always hurtful to the individual and to others. The wise Dhamma practitioner is free of bitterness. Look at that. That against what I just said. And now I'm not talking about those that consider themselves engaged Buddhists. But if you look at the root of their actions, it's rooted in this bitterness. And what is bitterness? Bitterness is the immediate insistence that something or someone be different than it is. The essence of the Buddha's teaching is to understand why unpleasant things arise and to remain at peace with it, not lose our minds over it. The Buddha awakened to the profound understanding that dukkha is the problem, and it's the ongoing distraction with trying to alleviate dukkha when it's a natural occurrence rooted in ignorance in the world. And so when we understand that, and we're protesting not against ignorance, but protesting against dukkha, that is so obvious and an ignorant response, ignorant of Four Noble Truths. Well, if anybody should take up a protest banner, it should be with the word ignorance in that circle with a line across it, because that's the most significant and really the only solution to all the world's problems, not just what's immediately occurring. The wise Dhamma practitioner is free of bitterness for what others receive. Those who despise in the gains of others will never develop jhana. And again, I don't want to get too deep into that, but look at how that plays out in the world. If someone that we think we should be opposed to because they're evil in any way, or maybe they're just not our best friend, with a mind rooted in ignorance, there'll always be bitterness towards what other people achieve, rather than joy in having a pleasant life for others as well as ourselves. The wise Dhamma practitioner, content with what they have received, even very little, pure in livelihood and persistent in their right effort, is praised by the wise beings, meaning awakened beings. Those free of clinging to sensual attainments, free of regret over what is not, they are truly known as a wise Dhamma practitioner. The wise Dhamma practitioner, virtuous, well concentrated, devoted to the Dhamma, will attain the peace of nirvana and the pure joy of cessation of all conditioned things. What that means is the cessation of all conditioned things are thought constructs that are conditioned by ignorance. An unconditioned mind has recognized and abandoned all views and ideas rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And again, there's the essence of the Dhamma. The Buddha continues, an empty boat sails effortlessly, empty of greed and aversion, empty of ignorance. This wise Dhamma practitioner will gain final release from all views, ignorant of Four Noble Truths. Uproot the 5 lower fetters, abandon the 5 higher fetters, conquer the 5 bonds, cultivate the 5 pure qualities. The wise Dhamma practitioner crosses to the far shore, and these are my comments explaining what I just said. The metaphor of ignorance as a river of suffering is common and shows the importance to recognize that without an empty boat, one cannot cross to the far shore of liberation. Again, if we insist on carrying around a boatload of wrong ideas and somehow, while clinging to those wrong ideas, transform them into right ideas, it simply can't be done. It shows the foolishness of much of what has developed in modern Buddhism and most spiritual practices that even 2,600 years ago, the Buddha studied and rejected as only continuing this ignorant way of living in the world. The 5 lower fetters uprooted by the wise Dhamma practitioner are delusion, doubt, belief in rites and rituals, lust, and ill will. The 5 higher fetters to be abandoned are craving for imaginary and speculative self-establishment in non-physical realms, whether heavenly or simply formless, conceit, restlessness, and ongoing ignorance of 4 Noble Truths. The 5 bonds to be conquered are greed, aversion, delusion, ignorant views, and continued self-identification with impermanent and fabricated objects, events, views, and ideas. And again, these are all simply common manifestations of ignorance. Establish jhana, meaning engage in right meditation, meditation whose sole purpose is to increase concentration and nothing more. The Buddha never taught anything else. He taught that a meditation practice is for the sole purpose of deepening jhana. And he gave us many, many suttas explaining what that means and explaining what it looks like and what it feels like to deepen concentration. There's nothing left for this key understanding for speculation, even though we've created an infinite number of so-called meditation practices that are almost entirely either contemplation, and contemplation isn't meditation, or there's some form of breath manipulation that people foolishly call mindfulness breath meditation. It would have never taught anything like that. Establish jhana. Do not be mindless. Do not be distracted by sensual pleasures, including the need for sensual pleasures within Dhamma practice. Mindless. Do not swallow a red-hot ball or you will cry out, "This is painful." There is no jhana. There is no concentration for those who lack insight. There is no insight for those lacking concentration. So the Buddha didn't teach meditation to gain insight, despite the modern movement. That seeking insight in meditation is simply another distraction. And when people that, how do I say this? Those that practice meditation would do well to read what the Buddha taught about jhana, because the very first level of jhana is to recognize directed thought and evaluation, and come back to the sensation of breathing, and turn your mind now to the second level of jhana, of just experiencing the pure joy of concentration. In other words, if you enter meditation grasping after insight to impermanence, that's directed thought, isn't it? And the Buddha teaches that as quickly as we can in meditation, to recognize and abandon directed thought and evaluation. Is this impermanence? Is this an experience of impermanence? How is impermanent? All of that is a constant distraction. So any teaching that would tell a wise Dhamma practitioner to sit in meditation and always be grasping after understanding impermanence is missing the whole point of meditation. The second jhana begins to eliminate that type of thinking, again, the Buddha's teachings, and the third and fourth jhana are established in a calm and peaceful mind that's seeking nothing. Insight arises, true insight arises from a concentration practice that can then incorporate the other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha continues, there is no insight for those lacking concentration. Those established in jhana, developing insight, they are close to nibbana indeed. The wise Dhamma practitioner who has established seclusion and calm, who understands the Dhamma with true insight, is delighted, a delight that transcends all ordinary delights. One of the most wonderful things of having the position that I have, the teaching the Buddha's Dhamma, is seeing the delight in others as these understandings start coalescing. And it's always rooted in someone who has first started developing concentration. And those that do that, I've been teaching about 10 years. I really can't remember when, but I think about 10 years. And the people that have the most difficulty and usually give up on the Buddha's Dhamma are those that reject the very foundation of meditation for a concentration practice. They're always distracted by other things and maybe what other people are doing in their local centers that they shouldn't be supporting anyway, if they want to really support the Buddha's teachings. And those that take to the Dhamma and really make great changes are those that incorporate the Dhamma as the Buddha intended, beginning with meditating for the sole purpose of deepening concentration. Let me read that again. Those who understand the Dhamma with true insight are delighted, a delight that transcends all ordinary delights. And that's how we can truly overcome craving for and grasping after and clinging to sensual pleasures. We substitute, that's not even the right word. We develop something that is of much more significant value. And that's a delight that transcends all ordinary delights. Delight in having a well-concentrated mind that's developing a right view of reality. What can be more delightful than that? The wise Dhamma practitioner who has gained insight into the arising and passing away of the 5 clinging aggregates is full of joy. This one knows the death of ignorance. The Buddha, that's my comments here. The Buddha teaches a very specific insight, and it is insight into the 3 marks of existence. The wise Dhamma practitioner avoids the common distraction of mindfulness of all things. I just want to see if there was anything else. That's the end of this sutta. It really, not sutta, this chapter. It's again another remarkable chapter, and again moving to the conclusion of the Dhammapada. And my next talk will be on the 26th chapter. The concluding chapter of the Dhammapada, and that'll be bring to an end this 6-month series of talks on the Dhammapada. I hope by the end of the summer to have another book put out. It should be completed by the end of the summer on these 26 chapters of the Dhammapada. And I'll announce that in the newsletters. If you found benefit from this talk, please consider a donation at becoming-buddha.com. Thank you for joining me today. Peace.